Tracy. Hey, Kendra.
Morning. Sorry. It's funny how those last 5 minutes before you jump on a call go like 2 minutes.
Yep, I hear ya.
Kelsey.
Don, I'm not sure if everyone else, but your volume is extremely low. Is that just me? Or-
No, we have this problem with her.
I think my microphone has given up. They're like, you use me too much.
Oh.
I'm not going. How's that? Is that any better?
Yeah.
But Torrance, you hear Wendy is loud and clear, but I'm not.
Yes,
test.
Wendy and others are louder than you are.
Huh. Okay, let me see if I have microphone volume down or something.
Torrance, you haven't heard anything from DEQ yet, have you? Okay. I'm exploring other funding options. I'm not giving up if we get it. I'm
Good.
being told that they didn't have enough applicants for all the money that they have, so that might
Oh,
be,
really?
I want money.
yeah, so that might be one option.
It may help us.
Yeah, if anybody has an extra 350 grand sitting around, let us know. So-
All right. Well, I'll just have to sit closely. I'm not sure why. Can everyone hear me? At
Mhm.
least? All right. I don't know. I don't have anything blocked, but I think my microphone.
Wendy, what is the grant? What is the grant?
We're
Details?
trying to get 2 electric refuse trucks.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
Nice.
anyway, so DEQ they're doing a rebate program where they'll pay 75% of the cost, and then the city has to find the other 25%. And we're having some challenges with that.
What's the total price tag? Just curious.
What was it, like it was about just over 2 million, Torrance? I'm trying to remember. 1.8. What was it?
Yeah, I don't recall right off, but
Somewhere, I'm trying to remember if the
1.8.
1.8 was before,
Yeah.
just for the grant. But anyway, we're talking close to $2 million.
Is it possible to get like a corporate partner for that?
That's what I'm looking into, whether we use Dominion or who knows.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, Capital One has met with the Clean City Commission a couple of times, like way before COVID, to
Okay.
talk about doing like a private partnership with us and,
Okay.
and getting other corporations involved. So maybe you should approach them.
Okay.
Like they are crazy green right now, Cap One.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for that tip. Yeah, I was talking with Virginia Clean Cities, who helped us write our Green Fleet study, and they said they've had some corporate interest in financing, like doing PPA type stuff and all that. But yeah, that would be great. So okay, because I'm not going to give up if we get this grant, which I'm pretty optimistic we'll get. I mean, I don't want to, or not grant, the rebate. I don't want to let it slip away from us. So.
Right.
The big ones that we mentioned 2 of them, Dominion and Capital One, and don't forget Altria. I mean,
Okay.
the ones that are part of the litter problem
Right.
are like,
Okay.
and they have a lot of money, and we all have our opinions on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing to take that money.
Okay.
But if it's going to good use, I tend to think give it. So,
Yes.
Listen, for years, Philip Morris sponsored and paid for so many productions at Theater Virginia when I was there, and we gladly took their money.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all those tips. I will definitely follow up.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and get started here. Today, we are talking about finalizing our draft strategies. This is going to be a short meeting, so let me go ahead and get started. The agenda is, of course, settling in, reviewing the final draft strategies is going to be the objective, and achieving consensus. So we're looking for, I can live with this on the draft content, because what's next is going out for public engagement. So we'll briefly go over those together, and of course ask for your your blessing, your any final feedback, and then, sorry, I'm trying to adjust my screen. And then from there, we will talk about community engagement and what's next, and then get your ideas on how to really reach those frontline communities that we want to, integrate into our plan. So, again, you are familiar with these ground rules and group expectations, so I don't need to go over them. This is a great group. I really like the way we've all become quite a team. So in terms of where we are in the process, we are finishing up this foundation setting, drafting of strategies, and moving into the community engagement. So then that's during the month of April. I'll go into more details when I get to that portion of the presentation, but following community engagement, we'll be coming back together in May and refining those strategies with any feedback, and then going into the more detail with the implementation plan. After that, we go back into community engagement in August, September, come back together later in the fall to finalize the draft plan content, and then next winter, we will go out for community engagement one more time, and then finalize the plan in the spring and look forward to council adoption 1 year from now. So that's the process overview. We've been modifying as we go, but love the fact that everyone has been flexible and willing to step to so that we can stay on track for the long run. So the draft structure, again, great job. We've got the goals, vision, community priorities, pathways, objectives. These strategies are in their final draft phase now. We've been working a lot on those, so I'm going to show you what they look like in a minute. And then all that's next is the implementation portion. How are we going to implement, measure progress, and ensure accountability in this plan? So that's getting a little more in the weeds, but we've certainly been capturing all of your input. We've been doing some of that already. So we've been capturing a lot of that we'll be building on over the summer. So the strategies that I'm going to present to you today have been worked and reworked, and you guys have put a lot of heart and soul into it, and expertise, lived experience, and we have taken it out to the community group, the community working group, and then we took it to the Roundtable, and it's been to city staff, senior leadership. All of that feedback came back to us, and staff, our team has done a great job of incorporating all of that to get them to as good as we can today. So again, the next step after the reviewing the input from the community engagement period is going to be refining them. So that's when we go into the prioritization of these. There are, I don't know what the total number is, but dozens, if not 100 strategies. So we're going to need to prioritize those. Which ones do we really want to accomplish by 2030 is the first goal. Hi, Kim. And so in thinking about these strategies, we'll certainly give more guidance on this, but the idea is that when we go to the community, which ones especially the frontline communities, the ones who are already seeing the impacts of climate change, which ones are going to be most helpful to them? Which ones do they connect with? So let's see. So those are the prioritization, of course, the timelines, what metrics, what details of implementation, what additional activities are going to fall under these strategies, and what's the accountability measure. That's going to be important next. So these are the strategies, and objective 1 is the Model Zero Waste through municipal operations. And as we went through them, we tried to organize them in buckets to make it a little more reader friendly and manageable. And we were able to combine some, and we were able to take some out and kind of save them underneath as part of implementation if we felt like maybe they were the next level of detail. So under municipal operations, we have a couple of zero waste and consumption ideas, composting, water waste, waste audits, resilient infrastructure, and education and awareness. This is kind of where it rolled up. And then under reduce commercial waste, we have zero waste, consumption, circular economy, composting, recycling, building codes, education and awareness. This is really the biggest one. And let me just pause here and say that within each objective, there are a lot of, it seems, like there are some duplicates, but because of the different sectors, the way we broke this up, they're just a little different. So I think waste has the most strategies, but that's because we're gearing them towards each of these different sectors. So that's something to think about. Under objective 3 for reduced residential waste, we have consumption, circular economy, composting, recycling, environmental justice, and education and awareness. And then under reduce industrial waste, we have zero waste, circular economy, composting, waste audits, carbon capture, environmental justice, and education and awareness. So I want to pause there, and I'm sure that you guys have some thoughts, and I would love to hear them or questions. And these, I sent an email out a couple days ago with an attachment that has them all listed. And then also, there's also the slide deck. I think Wendy put the link to it in the chat. Was someone trying to say something?
It looked like Tom came off mute and it sounded like him for a second. I'm not sure what.
Okay. Yeah, I know he has other things going on this morning. So I appreciate you listening.
Yeah, and I just in the chat. This is and I just went through the flag. Can't hear me.
No, you're coming in and out. I see your chat says, so after going through grant process with the Virginia.
Can you hear?
No, we can't hear you, but I see your message in the chat on how the term should be food waste diversion and reduction. Does anyone know what he's getting at?
Yeah, I was a part of a little bit of those discussions, and I think Sharon, if she's on, I guess composting is trying to go with different languaging, I guess. And if it's coming from Virginia Composting Council, I would take it as how we need to be referring. So maybe Tom will follow up with us and tell us if that's what he's talking about. But we did, Virginia Green, we did just submit a grant for a composting project and had the word compost everywhere. So I'm imagining he was corrected.
I would like to remind everybody, though, that when it comes to discussing this with the general public, using those terms of art, which we might understand, are not going to be the terms that folks in the communities we're reaching understand. They know what composting is. To explain to them what the other thing is I think not necessary and actually detrimental to what we're trying to do. I mean, we had this conversation before. Folks don't even know what green space means. You have to say it's parks, it's, open space with trees and grass. And once you say that, they're like, oh yeah, we don't have any of that. But when you say green space, they look at you like you have lobsters coming out of your ears. And I mean, this has been discussed a couple of times.
It's like a little trendy word. Well, I actually think that this is going in the opposite direction. And, we're talking about solid waste, and now we're going to say food waste. So it's actually making it a little bit more understandable and digestible for the public. Maybe. I'm not saying.
Yeah. That's a
one
good
way or
point.
the other. But as we continue to dice up each of these things, because each one has its own solution, I think the more descriptive and in line with the people who are pushing the real stuff, then, I mean, we got to educate the public. But I am with you on
That's
the
true.
green space words. I mean, those are they're trendy kind of fun things, but that
Right.
gets to it. Food waste diversion and reduction. It's kind of like what we landed on ourselves with our solid waste.
Great.
Yeah, to put this into further perspective, like I'm the secretary for the Virginia Composting Council, and I had limited involvement with this discussion, but even I'm not 100% on whether I should call it composting recycling or composting diversion or use, food waste for solid waste. Like, I don't think there is a cohesive message. I kind of agree that whatever is most effective with the public is the best strategy, because those are the folks that are ultimately going to be doing the diverting and recycling.
Great discussion. I think we can find a way to, maybe use all the terms or put something in parentheses.
Is there a form? I might have seen one at the very beginning, but is there a glossary of terms? I mean, maybe that's, something that we need to continue to grow, and it's an organic thing.
There is.
Um,
We've started a glossary in the office when people say things like this, and we have an intern who's working on building that out. So that is certainly in the works. And if you guys have, words that you want to add to that, please let us know. That will be coming out. I'm pretty sure that's coming out with Kendra. You might want to help me out here. I think that's going to be included with the strategies that are going out for community engagement. I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great. Thanks.
That's awesome. That's super helpful.
I have a quick question about how we haven't addressed paying for stuff. I don't see any language in here about goals for maintaining funding.
So that's part of implementation, right? How we're actually going to do this. These are strategies. And certainly when we get to how do we actually do this, funding, financing, the long-term, all of those details will be in there. We have been talking about incentives. There has been conversation about where to look, looking here, partnering, different, that has been part of the conversation. And so a lot of those details have been captured, and they're in the working sheet that we all have been working on together. But for the purpose of the strategies themselves, these are the overarching, actions to get us to our goal. How we do that is what's next.
Well, I'm mostly fine with all of this.
All right.
Hey, Dawn,
Yes.
do you mind if I close the loop, just because Tom did follow up with a text to me? And it's actually a little bit more that will lead into that definition of compost and the difference between waste diversion. It's like getting quite literal. And so the real point is that composting is what happens once you collect the food and other organics. That's like the action. But people aren't actually composting by taking their food waste to a central collection area or having it picked up or taking part in a process or a program that diverts. So it is actually, I mean, I see it from that perspective. But back to Jean's point, it's what the public perceives, and they think composting is that, oh, I'm going to take my food scraps and do blah, blah, blah. So I just wanted to close the loop on that and represent Tom with his.
Yeah, that's helpful. And so I'll take a look back at these, and think about, because in some cases it might be setting up a composting program, and in others it might be educating about food waste diversion and reduction. So yeah, I'll take another look at it. And if anyone here wants to kind of volunteer to help me with that language, I would love the help. So just let me know. So anything else? That's a great point. Any other thoughts on these?
So there's composting services. It was listed. And where is the other place that was brought up again? It's just that it looks like it's a someone else is going to do the work type of deal. And when I spoke to someone at the city about composting, their idea was that there would be a program wherein there could be at-home on-site composting structures for people willing to put them on their property or whatever. And I don't see that in there. So, I mean, there is
Let me just
literal engagement.
there, under the residential waste, we have composting measures, establish an equitable citywide composting program that makes composting accessible to all by including educational measures for on-site and backyard composting, operational measures for weekly curbside pickup, and convenient drop-off composting. We're prioritizing.
Yeah, I'm just going to be quiet now.
Well, no, that's a great point. This is the conversation I want to have because we've talked a lot in our breakouts and between meetings, and I've gotten emails and lots of conversations, but this is where they landed. So I love that you're asking these questions and you want to be more familiar with what ended up where, because these do look very different probably than they did when we were in our breakout rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So under residential waste.
I see it now. Yeah.
Yep. So we have it there. But what you caught was the commercial one, and that's where it gets a little confusing. As I was saying at the beginning, that these strategies they're kind of duplicated in each sector because each sector has a different responsibility. So the residents, we want to provide opportunities for them to recycle, but for the commercial waste, we don't want to pay for them to compost. We want to incentivize and support their efforts to create the facilities and services to, compost. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we're all part of this big, connected web, and each of us has a role to play. So that's why the objectives were split up this way. Each sector has a responsibility.
I see. Yep.
And then even under the municipal one, for composting, the city hopes to conduct composting education and awareness activities, provide options for composting in all of the city-owned buildings, parks, and facilities, and then make compost and mulch available to city properties, residents, and small businesses. That would be very helpful to the cause. So that's what the municipality would like to do. So then you've got the city government doing their part. You've got the residents with all these options. You've got commercial entities. And then for industrial waste, align incentives to reduce organic materials from the industrial waste stream. Do you think that covers all of it?
Yeah. I do. Yeah.
Great. Yay. Success. All right. So awesome questions. Thank you for these questions. It's, trying to take a look back at these and think of them holistically is really helpful. Any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, just touching back, I hate to circle back, but touching back on the terminology thing, there is a list of terms that is, immortalized in the Virginia Code, DEQ regulation. That'd probably be a good place to start. Just make sure any definitions we come up with or the city comes up with aligns with that at a minimum, if not, meets it completely. There's no definition of recycling or diversion in there, but even though it uses those terms in other definitions, so it gets a little, there's still a lot of uncertainty, but there's at least some solid definitions of like what a material is or what a certain type of facility is and that sort of thing.
Could you send me that link?
Yeah, I'll just post it in the chat.
Wendy, could you capture that for me? Perfect. Thank you. Really helpful. All right. I want any more feedback. You guys are fantastic.
I'm not sure if this is the place or whatever. Did you, I know there was a huge announcement. God, what day is it? it's Thursday. Was it this week? Yeah, Environment Virginia has been going on. The government announced this Executive Order 77. Our dates and our timing, you know, he put out there 2025, and I'm looking at RVA, and I mean, these are bigger things than single-use plastic, don't get me wrong. We're 2050, and I was thinking about, I mean, we're going to put that into perspective, and as agencies and city agencies and state agencies within, we're going to comply by 2025, right?
Yeah, so that's a great point because stuff, you know, while this isn't going to be adopted until next spring, there are things going on and we want to make sure that they're in alignment with this.
2025 is right around the corner. I was quite surprised that they were that aggressive. I was
Right.
amazed and love it, but
I know. So,
but I thought about this group and I was like, I think we might want to up our dates a little bit or something.
well, let's see if it falls in here. So we have implement climate neutral and waste free city procurement policy that reduces single use plastics and minimizes upstream emissions in all municipal purchase agreements, incentivize local, small, and minority owned businesses to meet expectations, and provide sufficient staff resources for policy enforcement. Should that language be modified?
You know, I don't know until we get to the point where we're having to put timeframes on things. That,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
this summer. So just in thinking about what was announced this week, do you think that would fall under this strategy?
definitely.
And is this strategy, and now this says reduces single-use plastics, they're actually getting rid of.
And
So,
yeah, and I was on a call with some of the people who know everything, and they were like, "No, I think it's still just polystyrene." I was like, "No, no,
so
I
instead
read
of
it.
that,
I read it." And they went on and like spread it to the group, and they were like, "No, it is like that's big. That's big time." I don't think really it's gotten the press that it needed. So I'll read this a little bit deeper, but I think we're going to do what we can do by the summer, and we've got a process, and you've got a process in which we go back and talk to the public. And I mean, I just think it's something we need to have in our mind, that everyone around, and it's a good thing, because I took a note after one of our last calls and I was like, gosh, we're going to do all this great stuff, and what if nobody around us is doing it? You know, it's like, I hate that thought, that the groups around us and the areas and municipalities around us wouldn't be as gung-ho. But it is a challenge, if we're downstream from communities that don't care. We can do what we can do, but we're still the product of where we are, and and the practices around us. So
great point.
so with that said, everyone is now going to be towing at least one common no single-use plastic line around us. So that's one thing we can all, rally around and do together, and hopefully everything else flows from that. All right, I've talked way too much.
No, this is great stuff. How about you, Kim? Any thoughts on the future of recycling and our strategies in line with industry and Torrance? Does this are you getting intimidated by your workload?
Well, I mean, I think it's all good, and yes, falls in line with everything that's coming down the pike from Virginia. There's recycling happening nationally too, and with the formation of the U.S. Plastics Council or U.S. Plastics Pact that I've been participating in too. More will come out later this year about eliminating plastics from a national perspective. So I think there's, I think what you've developed is, or what I guess the group has developed is certainly in line with what's coming down the pike as far as recycling, alternatives there's companies doing other things with waste other than landfilling. So there's alternatives coming down the pike that we'll want to take advantage of. From a regional perspective, we're going through the strategic planning process now to kind of determine, taking a holistic view of solid waste planning for the region. So hopefully, Tracy, to your comments about what everybody else around Richmond is doing, will fall in line with some of these strategies as well. So yeah, so I think it's good.
Great. Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
And
Lauren,
Dawn, I agree with what everyone has said. I think this process is going to be dynamic in the fact that we objectives and strategies that we may want to implement may happen before or later, depending on the public, depending on what the feel is and the temperature is for the public engagement. And like you said, some of the single-use plastic, that seems to be more of the low-hanging fruit we can get. We got the state pushing for that to get to there. So that may be a strategy or an objective that we can piggyback off of at this time. But it's going to be highly contingent on regional acceptance. And that plays a part too, as Tracy alluded to. So we'll have to be fluid in how in what we pursue in at different times.
One last thing. I don't know if everybody was familiar with that happened, but it's state agencies and universities. So that's super cool, because what that means is that all of these young adults, are being forced into some behaviors by virtue of going to a state school. And they have to do it. Of course, we've got all these other businesses and entities that are going to have to, we'll try to get in, but this is the start of it. And I thought the university, including universities, was an amazing thing. And of course, we have a bunch of them that are doing great work already. George Mason is amazing. And but anyway, I thought that was important to note.
yeah, under reduce commercial waste, we have an education and awareness strategy, a task force for institutional waste. Create a task force to work with institutions to reduce large waste streams. Oh, it looks like there's another one under there, commercial, that got buried. So I need to edit that. But that is getting at that. Maybe it needs to be built up a little better. But
Well, so
finding the best
I wish Sharon was on the call today, only because DEQ is going to be the lead on this, like monitoring, reporting, I guess doing surveys and audits. They're going to be on task for it. So whatever that means for that small group already, it's going to be pretty big project for them in a short period of time. So I hope Sharon can talk more to it soon. I bet you that's why she's maybe not on the call, is they're scrambling. I don't know. I don't want to assume anything, but it seems like a pretty big deal that they're going to have to ramp up for.
Yeah, there was one about best practices, institutional best practices. Here it is under education and awareness. Seek best practices among institutional partners with established practices for cost-effective potential opportunities and collaborations. I don't like that sentence. But I think those are kind of getting at what we're talking about. So let me make some notes. Okay, good stuff. Anything else? Okay, so we would take a 5-minute break here, but I think we can, unless folks want to, we have a pretty small group and we're going to jump into engagement ideas and then we can wrap up early. Does that sound okay? All right.
Great.
Okay, so let's see. Next up, community-wide engagement. So on April 7th, the mayor is going to be announcing the launch of RVAgreen 2050 community engagement period during his weekly press briefing at 1 o'clock. I think it's on Facebook or Zoom, but that's when he'll launch it and things are going to start happening. So there's going to be an online PDF of all the strategies in Conveo where people can, and it's going to have it's going to be a little more reader friendly with some graphics and broken up a little more digestibly. That's a word. And then the terms, like we discussed, the kind of dictionary definitions will be in there. So we're asking people for that kind of comment, but then there's also going to be a survey that's a little more easy to get through, and we'll be asking for feedback on that. There's going to be a weekly newsletter with, I believe it looks at each of the different pathways, and then an engagement toolkit to be shared with partners, and that's going to have social media graphics, content materials. You'll be getting this toolkit to forward on to your constituents or stakeholders or organizations or neighborhoods or whatever access you have. So that's going on, and then there are going to be these weekly RVAgreen Gab events on Thursdays in April, and folks from the working groups have been asked to speak to them. So I kind of forget who from Waste has agreed to volunteer their time, but this is an opportunity for the public to learn more about the work that you've been doing. So again, emails, newsletters, social media, websites. That's what's going on in April. And we'll be asking the community if these strategies and objectives help meet their goals or vision for climate resilience and climate neutral Richmond based on their experiences. So everyone is feeling the impacts of climate change differently. If you live in a high-rise apartment building with no shade and it's not insulated well, maybe your air conditioning isn't working well, you're in the middle of a heat island, you're going to be really hot. So there are people in Richmond living that way, and they, I think it's even been, they've done the studies. They're 10 degrees hotter in summer than other neighborhoods. So people are feeling that. People have consistent flooding problems, and so we're looking for sea level rise to get to our homes. Some of us, but then others are. Every time it sprinkles outside, they're getting the impacts of, extreme flooding or extreme weather events or any weather event. So everyone's feeling this differently. We want to get to the people who are in those frontline communities and who are feeling the impacts and that we can do the most good for. So that's what I would love to hear your thoughts on how to get to those folks. Because traditionally, those of us in this field are used to just preaching to the choir and coming up with all kinds of the same ideas. But we want to step outside of the box and be creative.
Hi. Ideas now?
Not yet. Not yet. So some of the examples, the roundtable engagement, and I would love for Jeannie to share with us what she's going to be doing, but each of those roundtable members, and I'm just going to remind you about what the roundtable is. And again, Jeannie, you know better than I do, so please add to this. But they are folks from our community who have been invited to represent their own lived experience, their own neighborhood, whatever they see as their personal identity. They're not necessarily speaking for the masses. They're speaking for their own lived experience, and they're being paid stipends for sharing their time and expertise with us. So this roundtable, this environmental justice and racial equity roundtable, is vetting everything that the working groups are putting together. It's going through them for feedback. You've heard Jeannie speak up about language and bringing in that different perspective from the roundtable to our group, which has been really helpful. So each of them has an engagement plan for the month of April that they are individually going to be doing, and some of those examples are hosting a community yard sale to bring people together to learn, about this, and possibly using the proceeds as a raffle prize. Some of these ideas of incentives. How do you get folks to take the time to give us their feedback when they've got a million other priorities? They don't necessarily want to fill out another community survey. Is there something that we can offer as an incentive to get people to give us their feedback? Canvassing neighborhoods with door hangers and flyers. Our office is putting together some things like that. If you would like some of those items, let us know. Or if you can think of other things that would be helpful. Engaging business owners and leaving materials in shops and offices. I think someone is going to all the beauty parlors in a particular neighborhood, because that has been really effective. A lot of conversation goes on there. Direct outreach to business customers. I think that was where that one came up. And then church conversations, of course, that's a great place in some of these neighborhoods. That's the community gathering spot, is the local church. And then pop-up picnics and meetups in parks. That sounds fun in this COVID time. I know that engagement is challenging right now, but we have some creative ideas going on. And then, of course, social media engagement with Facebook rooms and direct questions. I know those of us on Facebook, we're members of a number of groups. So this social media will be easy to kind of push out to all the different Facebook groups as well. So those are examples. Jeannie, do you want to talk to that at all?
Yeah, you just covered most of what we've been discussing. We're also meeting when we can, either virtually or in a distance way with civic associations, and that'll get easier as the weather in April gets a little bit nicer. A lot of civic associations are actually meeting outside, right? Are planning on meeting outside from what we've heard. We're engaging with our city council people and going to their regularly scheduled town halls. For instance, my council person in the 6th district does 2 town halls a month. And they've been virtual now, but as time moves on and if she starts having in-person ones, we plan on engaging with them that way as well. And just to do door-to-door knocking and chatting with people, standing in their yards when they come to the door and having a conversation with them, handing them the materials, letting them know what it's all about and how important it is to hear their voice. And we're going to be trying to do as much one-on-one within our communities as is safe and possible, because for a lot of folks, as we've said many times, this is all very new to them. And just getting another survey or something hanging on their door from the city, unless it says their gas is going to be turned off for the day or their water is going to be turned off while they're working at, on something on the street, they toss it without looking at it. So as much personal contact, distanced personal contact as we can have is sort of what we're going for.
I think it's important to, with your flyer, to note that there will be people coming on a certain day or week, because otherwise it's proselytization and people think door-to-door stuff is strange. We're like in a different area here. So if your
Right.
door hanger.
That's a good point. Unfortunately, people won't be coming on a certain day because these are all volunteers and they're sort of doing it when they can, as far as the roundtable work goes. So, but that's a very good point. We should just say, expect to see somebody from, that's a great point.
And one thing to add to that, what I wanted to ask was, so will the people from the community, will they will be a part of the canvassing and door-to-door knocking or whatever? You said you will have a rep from the community at the round table.
Well, the roundtable, they are the community members. And
so all of the roundtable, okay.
Yeah.
So those doing the canvassing, can that be the same or similar group?
Yep, that's us, the folks on the roundtable, and I can't remember. Maybe somebody can remind me how many of us there are. I want to say they're between a dozen and 20. we're the ones that are going to be going out to the community. We're sort of the evangelists for specifically making sure that social inequities and racial inequities that have historically happened when it comes to climate issues doesn't happen again, and that the marginalized communities are the folks whose voices are heard in this process, to make sure that everything that we're planning doesn't put an undue burden on somebody the way it has in the past. So yeah, the Roundtable folks are actually the ones that are going out to do all this.
So the Roundtable folks will consist of people from the various neighborhoods. The Roundtable people will change from neighborhood to neighborhood as well.
No, the Roundtable people are all the same. We are 12 to 20 folks from all over the city, from all different demographics, and we've been meeting basically since we here have been meeting to run everything that all these working groups are doing through the filter of social justice. So the Roundtable is just, I mean, look at it as another working group, and look at, I guess maybe look at it as the folks who are going to be taking all this information out to the communities. We're not asking community members to come and join the Roundtable. We are going to them.
And that's where I'm leading. How do we get more engagement? And it's not just speaking to the actual community members at one point and then leaving. And how do we induce more engagement throughout this process? And what I believe, if we can get, if there is a way to get community members to join, they may not have to be paid, or they may not, I'm not saying that, but if there are a few from each or however many neighborhoods, I think that would go a long ways to canvassing and commitment from that group. Is
I
that?
love that. It's very optimistic, but I love that we should. So, okay. What we're going to do next is go into breakout rooms and actually get these ideas down on sticky notes. So, Jason, I know you want to say something, but do you want to do it in the breakout room?
Sure, whatever.
Okay. So, we're going to split up for 15 minutes into two groups. Wendy will have half of you and I'll have the other half. And this is, so these sticky notes look like this. And we're just looking for ideas. So, oops. The questions are, what are your ideas for engaging frontline communities? What are your ideas for engaging your communities, both professional and personal? How can the Office of Sustainability support you with materials, content, etc.? And do you or someone you know have a specific skill or knowledge or contacts that can help us with community engagement? Editing, publicity, media, any kind of help that you can offer us with, limited resources to get this out. And Torrance, I love what you were saying, so I'm going to keep thinking about that. But why don't we go ahead and split up, like I said, for 15 minutes. If you're with me, you're in breakout room 1, and we'll be putting our ideas on slides 21 and 22. Does everyone have access to this slide deck? I think Wendy had put the link in the chat, and if not, I can type stuff for you, but I'm slides 21, 22. Wendy will have 23 and 24, and then we'll come back together at 5 after 10.
Okay, you ready? Here we go.
All right, so I have Dawn, Elle, Kim, and Ryan. All right. So, we'll start with slide 21 and go ahead and we can talk about ideas, or you can just type them, or we can have a conversation about it. Drag your stars to ideas that you like.
My first idea is to like give away little like tomato plants or, you know, I don't know, whatever kind of plants that somebody might like, even flowers, like little seedlings, you know, where to get people to come.
I also
Yes.
have I love that idea, Dawn. I think that would be awesome. Is it okay if I throw some more out there?
Yes.
Oh,
please.
sure.
Yeah, I was thinking, just as we were talking about canvassing and timing and things like that, whether some of those stipends could be used to have like high schoolers in the area aid in those canvassing efforts. So that way you have members of your own community kind of coming to your door and you're engaging young folks. I think that could be like an interesting way to do that. So that way it's not just another like random person, you know. I think that would be neat. Also, I was wondering, I know that there was talks about the Movie Land Bowtie Cinema doing like a drive-in movie type thing going on in the parking lot. If I remember, that was a conversation like a couple of months back. I have no idea if any movement has happened on that, but I do think that for the like the GABs, the RVAgreen GABs, it would be interesting to try to figure out a way that there's like a socially distanced space so that way folks who maybe don't have as much reliable access to internet can still go and be present for it, and then maybe have like an appointed, you know what I mean, like there can be like a question table up front or something with a bunch of clean pens or whatever, and people can go in, write it, and then you have one person like so and so from like this Movie Land parking lot, you know, whatever it may be, and making sure that that's accessible via transit, I think would be interesting. That one requires a lot more planning. I'm thinking about all of these different things that already exist and how to like amplify their reach.
I love it. Great idea. Ideas, absolutely.
What
Do you
about,
Land parking lot though? Did I get that right?
I know that there was a conversation back in February about like moving that parking lot to try to, you know, like regain their sales, I think, into a drive-in movie. I don't know how much has been done on that, but I think that that's part of like partnering with commercial folks, you know. I think that that can kind of serve a dual purpose because they're going to need to be spoken to about like movie theaters generate a butt ton of, you know, single use trash. So they'll need to be talked to regardless, and maybe trying to figure out, hey, like it looks good for them to host that sort of public engagement as well. But
yeah. No, that's a great idea. I'm sorry, Kim, what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask if like, you know, some of the city council members still do like town hall meetings, and I know I've been to several of them over the years, and some of them get more turnout than others for various things, but I don't even know how much city council has been briefed on any of this either, but they should be champions, I think, of you know, moving the strategies forward and getting their own constituents involved, you know, to talk about it. So I don't know if that's still a thing, if they are, and probably during COVID, they haven't been doing much of it, I guess. But they go out and talk about different topics. And so this would be a good one for all of them to get it spread around the city.
Yeah, I love the way these ideas are going because I do know that the city council, they will be talking about this in each of their district meetings, but the extra step of getting their own constituents involved and kind of like Torrance was saying, you know, looking for those community representatives in each neighborhood in addition to the roundtable. And then, you know, Movie Land actually going out there, they're already generating trash. So let's talk to them about this. Like, not just going out and kind of checking a box. Yeah, let's attend a city council meeting. But then, like, what's the action, right? Because that's
Right.
really where it gets some momentum. Great idea.
Well, and even staff, I mean, like all of your departments. I don't know how many of city staff members live in the city, but I would imagine a good portion do. But them also being champions in their own communities is, you know, I don't know, I think it's important too.
Yeah, great point.
I would love to star that city council getting your own constituents involved aspect. I think that greater transparency on that front would be great for every for every aspect, not just RVAgreen 2050. And I also do want to correct something on the asking high schoolers to help engage. I was thinking more of a like pilot program if these stipends exist for folks to like be present for the roundtable, whether there may or may not be money to make it like an after school job, like not just asking folks to come out and knock on doors for something they don't believe in, but like putting money in their pockets.
Yeah, I know that there is at least one high schooler on the roundtable. The stipend came from a grant through USDN.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I have no idea of what money exists, but I feel like, just asking folks versus like, hey, like you can make bank, get your, like it'll incentivize them to like learn more, do their job better, that sort of thing.
No, great idea. Yeah, and the giveaway plants or seedlings, those kinds of ideas are great. We're certainly looking for any kind of donations or so the science museum, right? What's his name? Hoffman. I'm drawing a blank.
Jeremy Hoffman.
Yes. So
Yeah.
he's very involved in this. And so one of the ideas was get the Science Museum to donate a couple tickets, because the survey and the online document that we're asking people to review, there's a second survey that asks for demographics, because we want to see who is filling this out. We want to make sure that we are getting to the right people. So, one of the ideas was, how do we incentivize them to fill this out? And we were trying to come up with ideas of, giveaways or raffles, and so the idea of the Science Museum, or if one of you represents an organization that could donate something, great. But are 2 tickets to the Science Museum really what's going to drive someone who's trying, working 2 jobs with 3 kids and one of them's sick and has all these? Do they really want to take the time to fill out a survey to go to the Science Museum? It's just a question. So then they were like, well, if we could do gas cards or something, but our office can't. So, it's tricky. We don't have any great conclusions, but trying to incentivize.
Yeah, I hear you on that front. I have no answer to that. I just was struck with some other ideas.
Okay.
I'm not sure what would. I guess I was wondering if there were paper surveys going out to every household as well, or whether it was just existing online and the flyering was happening at the door-to-door level.
Right.
Just because it's kind of in a similar vein to mail-in ballots, is like everybody gets their ballots by mail, more people tend to fill them out. So that might be like an interesting point. Again, all of these things require money, but I have no idea. But and then I also was wondering about like whether there was advertisements going on like GRTC buses or like local news channels, and like getting you know what I mean, or like over the announcements type of thing on the bus. And remailers being the survey themselves. So not just like information, like go online, be like, nope, here's the ranked choice. Like, assuming like, hope maybe that survey comes after the canvassing attempt. Like canvassing happens for 1-2 weeks, then all the letters come out, and then 2 weeks later, like responses come in ideally. And having that ranked choice like in their hands, rather than being like, hey, you got to save the date to go online. Just like eliminating those steps.
Yep. Yep. Great idea. I know that our HA is, we're trying to work with them on getting something in their, they have a monthly mailer to all of their residents. But you're right, actually including the survey would be great. In different things I've done with these mailers, the response rate isn't always great. It's a lot of work to put together mass mailings, and it's always, sad when the response isn't great. So being strategic about it's important.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It would stink to send all that paper out there and then not get any response. It seems counterintuitive for what we're trying to do. But I was also wondering, kind of with the pop-up picnics and meetups in parks, whether or not, since this first round of engagement is in like it's Earth Day aligned, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe doing like, I don't know, like fun hands-on-y type activity as much as we can get in COVID. It's just so hard to try to plan this for COVID times. But like recycle your own paper station, you know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. Get like kids out there and involved, really excited in like, Maymont or whatever, like there is a new bird or something, and they are planning it simultaneously, but having kind of those like, here it like, having kids turn the compost or something like that. So there's like a hands-on experience that gets them out there, and then their parents can be talked to while the kids are kind of like playing, experiencing these things that are going to be implemented on a grand scale, and starting that education young. Also, I realize I've been talking a lot, so I am so sorry about that. I just have no technical expertise in like waste reduction. All of my stuff is community engagement. So
Fantastic. Well, then we need you for sure. Yeah, these are great ideas. So, please be considering how you can share this with your organizations and things that you're already doing. I've been.
I love the Earth. Oops.
No,
Go ahead.
please. I'm
No,
done.
I love the Earth Day thing. I think that can be, like you said, you've got a captive audience, you could do the plant giveaway, they have the surveys, that kind of could be a really, good community engagement issue or program or whatever.
Yep.
And I'd love to help with it.
Great.
That'd be fun.
as for blasting out to our own communities, I know that there was like social media engagement and things like that. I was wondering if y'all had like draft tweets or emails or something like that that already exist, because then, whatever organizations that we separately are a part of, we can just like amend that language and make that much easier for distribution. I'm not sure whether like those materials already exist or whether they are like open to everyone, or whether they're just like RVAgreen 2050 branded, like in that it only comes from that program. But I think it would make that burden much easier if it's like, okay, here are the tweets, here's relatively what we're trying to say. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, that came up yesterday in the buildings group, that if it's just already existent and all you have to do is paste it and push send, you don't have to add your own language and modify anything. Absolutely. That's the idea behind the toolkit. It's just ready-made push.
Awesome, cool. I wanted to be sure.
Yep.
And then I have one more thought, and I will take a breather there. But I was curious kind of about the marketing for this program in general, in terms of like how much is going out there, because this is I know that Us for Waste, like we have a lot of things that we're talking about. We're talking about 4 different sectors. It's a butt ton of information. We're asking for ranked priorities within each sector, but then also with the work groups as wholes and things like that. And I was wondering like kind of what the load looked like for other groups, how much do they have comparatively, and if there's a way to separate out those, I know that the GAB, the talks are separated out, but whether that can happen on more, like in more targeted ways or not, like, okay, the ones on the GRTC are going to be geared towards transportation work group priorities, and the ones, like that sort of thing. And the, I'm not sure how, and I think like if we're talking about like an Earth Day thing, that means different stations dedicated to each work group with like one hands-on activity for each station, but yeah, I'm just curious as to what the load looks like all around and how many things we're asking people to rank.
Right. That's a great point. And I think that's why there are 2 different models. One is the whole comprehensive Conveyo PDF with all of the strategies. And then the other one is a very simplified survey. So yeah, that's what it conceptually looks like. I think next week is when that's all going to be finalized. And you all will be on the first, flood of outreach.
And as far, I will clarify, just coming in at the end of that conversation, as far as the social justice roundtable is concerned, when we go out into the community, we're going to talk to folks and communicate what we're doing here and what RVAgreen 2050 is, and how we think it's going to impact everyone's lives. But really, we are going out to be listeners. We're not going out to proselytize. We're going out to ask questions and to find out where people live, and then come back and say, so we thought this was a great idea, but actually, here's what our community said. So at this point, it's less going out and educating people in the process as far as the roundtable is concerned, and more tell us what you think the problems are. Tell us where you have been left out of this process.
Thank you, Jeannie. That was so well said. I think, letting people know that this exists is certainly a goal. That this is, getting just that branding, that this is something that the city's working on. But what she said is even more important, really. And hopefully this is kind of reminding you of that very first training that we did together was that in November, I think, on the community listening sessions and really going out and listening. That's what's making this process different from everything else that we've done in the past. So thank you. Okay, well, got some great ideas. Is there anything that anyone wants to share with the greater group besides what we've just heard together?
Had some good conversations going on in our breakout group. So
good.
I'm always I have this new responsibility. I'm always looking for people now to give talks and walks and presentations for Virginia Native Plant Society. So if anybody's interested in that, you can contact me. I'll drop my email down here in chat.
Excellent. Okay, well, so then again, this is where we are. I don't need to go over that again. But for wrapping up, actually, let me jump back to this. That's why the slide's here. So when we get back together, we're taking a couple of months to not meet up here, but would love for you to continue to, promote and listen in your communities, and you'll be getting emails from us, and you'll hopefully see lots of engagement opportunities. So we will come back together sometime in mid-May to then take a look at all the feedback and input we got. And then from there, we'll meet again in June and July to build out the next level of detail on these strategies, the implementation, priorities, timelines, metrics, accountability, those things. And then again, take another break while this goes back out into the community at the August, September timeframe, and then we'll be meeting up again in the fall. So that's kind of what this group looks like. I really appreciate all of your time. You guys have been awesome. It's been so nice to meet with you. And I look forward to more. But for now, any additional feedback on the strategies, please send to me or Wendy by Monday. And then logistically, we'll be switching to Zoom, to Microsoft Teams, from Zoom to Teams. It's a city wide effort or policy. So we'll make sure that everyone has training and access and knows how to use Teams. Does this time, Thursdays at 9, work for you guys for the summer, or should we change it up? I mean, I guess I'm asking the people who are here. So
It's terrible for me. It's right smack in the middle of my work day. I have to take off work to do this.
Yeah, it's bad for me, but I don't know what would be better.
Jason,
Saturday morning would be better for me.
Yeah, weekends would be great. I know that's a huge ask for people, but I told my husband this morning, oh my gosh, if these started at 6 a.m., I would love it, and everybody would hate me.
I'm up. Jason, what works for you? What hours work better?
Well, I run a small business, so it's like this day is very important to me to like go work. And losing that sucks. But Saturday is ideal. Saturday morning is ideal. Sunday I'm out food not bombsing. So I just won't be able to get on a call. So I mean that's just the best for me.
Jason, how would like earlier in the week be? Maybe Mondays or Tuesdays? Well, Tuesdays.
Tuesdays or Thursdays are the only days I can do it because of my work schedule.
all right.
So I know
How about if I put a survey out, and we'll just do that again and see what works for the majority.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So then there's a survey in the link in the chat, a survey link in the chat, and we would love your feedback going forward. What would make this process better? How can we continue to improve? And again, any updates, upcoming events, resources, put those in the chat or say them out loud. Otherwise, we're done.
I'll shout mine out real quick. So, the city of Richmond is partnering with Veridiant, which is one of our local nonprofit organizations. It does a lot of energy efficiency, weatherization, and we're partnering with them for this year's Solarize RVA campaign. So if you've ever been thinking about or interested in putting solar on your home or a church or a business or something like that, we're going to have the kickoff webinar tonight. I put the link in the chat at 7 p.m. is when it starts. And basically we'll just go through it. And what the Solarize program does is we pre-screen contractors that you can trust to go to and get bids to put the solar on your home. In the past, they've also, pre-negotiated prices, but we've decided to change up that model. So we'll pre-screen the contractors, but you'll be free to select from, 2 or 3, and they'll provide you a bid. And then Veridiant will also do a home energy assessment for you beforehand for $45. Because you want to make your home as energy efficient as possible before you put solar on. So they'll go through and do that with you beforehand too. So, and just give you any guidance. So anyway, if you're interested, feel free to tune in tonight and we'll see how that goes. I participated back in 2014. I read about it in the Richmond Times Dispatch and put some solar on my house. So anyway, it was a good process.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Horace, did you have something? Oh, nope. I thought I saw hands up. Okay, great. So thanks everyone. Have a great day and look forward to working with you again soon.
Enjoy the break from us.
Bye.
Bye.